Yes, there's always something scary. The nature of being an artist is scary. You put yourself in front of the world and you never know how it's going to react.
Hey, welcome to Voices on the Wind, the podcast about catching those ideas that whisper by our head and turning them into what they are, something significant. This is season 2 of Voices on the Wind, and Maverick Lyles. And
I'm Toby Lyles.
Yep, with the hosts of today and probably every podcast. And we, what are we at? Season 2, yeah. So we got our email, a newsletter on Substack, which is pretty awesome. Got a lot of fun stories,
Which you have not written on yet. I'm just going to point that out.
I
Season 2, you did not write one email in season 1.
I did not write any of them.
People are asking, I'm sure.
No, I'm sure they are. Yeah, I have not written on them.
Okay.
But I have read some of them, and I need to read more of them. But I've liked all of the ones I've written, so you should definitely read it. It's just my priorities are a little off. Yep, so we got that. So that's votw.substack, right? .com, right? Yep. So we got that, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, in season 2, we have a sponsor this season, and I'm really excited to introduce you to someone you already know, Denise Patton. Denise Patton, she runs the Art at the Hines, and I'm going to read what she wrote and we put together because, it explains it well. So, Voices on the Wind podcast sponsor Denise Patton serves as in-residence artist and gallery coordinator at Art at the Hines in downtown Cheyenne, Wyoming. Situated at 1602 Capitol Avenue in the heart of this historic Western city, the gallery offers an eclectic, ever-changing collection of art for exhibition and sale by 8 talented local and regional artists, including Denise, who creates her unique and beautiful art at the working studio here. For more information, visit the Facebook page, Art at the Hines. That wasn't a bad ad read, huh?
No, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I think I need to drop it down a little bit next time to say, Voices on the Wind, podcast sponsor, Denise Patton. Anyway, if you have not checked out Denise's art, go check it out. I believe she sells. Certainly, you can drop by locally, but if you're not here in the city, Cheyenne, Wyoming, where we are, I know she does online stuff.
Yeah.
So check out her art. Is beautiful, and I was interested. She did some fabric art recently that I didn't even know existed. Just really beautiful stuff. So go check out what she's doing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And we are introducing you to Desiree Brothe today. Speaking of art. I just learned, actually, that Cheyenne was named by Forbes the art something or other of the West.
Art
Mecca.
Yep.
So lots of beautiful art here in cowboy country. And, in a small town, there is still plenty of beautiful art. So I think that says something good for small towns everywhere. So Desiree Brothe is on the podcast today. She's talks about some of the art things I love in business, because she talks about how the frustration maybe of creating what you love and what you know sells. And so she explores that a little bit in this podcast, and how she's trying to bring out some of what she loves as well as what sells. And she's helping other artists develop art businesses. So I still think that art in some ways defines the way we do business or come up with ideas, because it is this this uprising or something that whisks by our head, and we are turning that into something. So whether it be a piece on a paper with colors and crayons, or it's just a brand new business, making boats, or working with your hands, or consulting, coaching with people, or whatever your business happens to be, software, it's still an artistic-ish measure. It's our babies is what comes out of us. So very good interview with Desiree Brothe.
So I started what I have been calling for years now, Magpie Creations, in 2019. And it was pre-pandemic, so I was not part of the pandemic startups, but no less still ended up going through most of those startup things that everybody did during that time. And a lot of it came about. I had been making art. I'd sold a few things. I With some of my professional life, had reached a point where I had really good connections, and it kind of became, if I don't do this for myself now with the connections I've already built, I'm never going to do it. Like, it just needed to happen.
Okay, so you were connected right at the beginning, it sounds like. Were you always doing art and meeting art people?
Yes,
So
I guess
you're
I
just
should
an
back
artist,
up to that
but not
beginning.
a business person.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Okay,
Yeah, the
okay.
business side was a formality of something I've done since I was 5 years old.
This was like a hobby, and then
Yeah, so
I'm trying to move it from I'm just dabbling in my bedroom or whatever to you're connecting with people and people take you seriously even before the business.
Yeah.
It sounds like the business kind of started.
It was like the last step to everything, for sure. I should clarify. So my degree, going through school and having as much art support as I had, clearly I was going to end up in the arts in some way. That was never a question. And the options that were really, which I could go on a whole diatribe about how we talk to youth about options as adults, but the options that were presented were really, you could teach, you could go into museum studies, it was kind of those traditional paths. So I ended up going into teaching. Okay. So I actually had a K through 12 licensure for art education and hit that path with it, went through student teaching. I knew before my student teaching, I didn't want to teach. I figured that out and was like, well, I'm going to complete the degree. So I did. And got some good connections, but then I graduated in the middle of the recession, 2008, 2009. Yeah. So not going to find a teaching job at that time. The way I came back to arts, not only personally, but professionally, was through working in community and economic development.
This may be a sidetrack, but
sure.
It's a curiosity of mine.
Yeah.
The developing relationships here in Cheyenne, anybody in a small town or a big city actually can understand it's not always easy to move into a new place and develop relationships.
When I do get asked this question, I always recommend volunteer, find things you like, try and put yourself out there a little bit. It's hard, it sucks, it's not fun, especially for introverts, but it's either that or you exist in your house all the time and you never leave. I mean, what are your options here?
Thank you for indulging me on that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, so back to your story. So you're an artist, you're trained as an artist, and you start to connect with your job. So you skip a little bit, and people note that you're an artist. And so they begin asking you to do art projects. Why did you stand out?
Actually, no.
Okay.
I didn't let on that I was an artist.
Okay.
For a lot of years while working at the DDA.
Did you hide it, or did you just...
I didn't hide it. It just, sometimes when you just don't say a thing, it doesn't, it's not, visible then. I was able to leverage my skill set, which ironically, teaching and curriculum development is identical to program management when you look at it from a community level. So I was able to leverage all of those things together, but I didn't really let on that I made art at all until I think I submitted for a couple random exhibits that were happening in town. And that's where people were like, I didn't know you made art. And I was like, yeah, I do. And I even, because I started at the DDA in 2015, I didn't start the business until 2019. So I didn't formalize this for another several years later between the two.
Was there anything scary in between not telling people about art or maybe doing a couple things and I'm going to be an artist or I'm going to start a business? I mean, a business license is, something you have to get, but there's a decision somewhere in there.
I mean, yes, there's always something scary. The nature of being an artist is scary. You put yourself in front of the world and you never know how it's going to react. And working at the position I was in, I became fairly well known. And when you're in that sort of level of community knowledge and then you choose to be an artist in that same sphere, the scary part is not about doing it. For me, it was about in the type of art I want to create. And this comes back to another theme throughout my life, which is the idea behind making safe art, or the idea behind making art that has commentary or symbolism associated. And how do you exist in a rural community with either of those options? Because that's hard. And so if you become well known in said rural community and you don't want to make safe art, how do you push that forward? And I still don't have that answer today.
Oh, darn. That was obviously the next question.
Sure. Just set you up for it.
Have you, okay, so maybe we can talk about that from, the money side of things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's the reaction from your unsafe art that you normally get?
Art that has commentary associated with it or that is deemed unsafe in some regard does not sell well in this particular environment. There's very much a reality that people want something pretty or unique, sometimes thought-provoking, that they can hang in their home and feel comfortable with. Provocative art is not those things. And so finding the appropriate place to put that becomes the question for the artist and what they do with it. So in terms of saleability and a lot of the conversations I end up having, it's a lot around what do you like to make and what are you willing to produce over and over again in some capacity or otherwise make adjustment to or change that you can sell. And what are your goals with selling? Who is your audience? It becomes these bigger questions about how we sell art in communities like those that we have in Wyoming.
Yeah. Well, I asked the question. I appreciate your answer because that was a really good answer. Because we starting a business or often all sorts of areas in life, I'm sure, but there's what will sell to people. What do I love to make? And what am I good at?
Yep.
The three areas, the Venn diagram that you're trying to put together. And so art has got to do the same thing. Well, I love this message, but maybe it won't sell.
Yep.
And here's the sunset, but I'm not passionate about it.
Yeah.
But it sells.
Yep.
And where do you find your middle in the middle of that?
From when I started the business, the art I was making then, some of the opportunities that have come my way, choosing subject matter that I know sells, and now finally being at a point, both personally and just maybe how I maybe demonstrate this on the exterior, of wanting to do something that's a little bit more thought-provoking. I think my audience is also ready for it by this point. And I say that because the reactions I got to the piece that I just put in the Creativity Center show called Feelings had a broader reaction to it on social media than I expected. It was surprising, and it's fine. It's exciting. I take it. I don't want to say I take it with a grain of salt. I acknowledge it, but it's not a driver for me. But it does tell me that, okay, so if I make art like this, or if I continue to push some of these boundaries and move these things forward, it's going to get a better response than maybe if I would have led with this art. Because now I've honed my audience to see my skill set, what I've done, what I'm capable of doing, and they're going to be more accepting to my own experimentation. And I think that's a lesson that all creators are having to learn through social media. Sometimes you just can't come in hot. You gotta bring people along with you for that ride.
Yeah, they've got to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
Maybe even know your motives behind it a little bit more. So tell me a little bit about how, just financially, you don't have to go in all your numbers, but I'm just curious, as an artist, do you just network and just talk to people and be like, hey, I'm available for a mural? Well, that's a big thing. That's the side of a building, or, some people can just do this every day.
I will admit that I've been very lucky for the mural opportunities that I've had. And some of it is the nature of the work that I do, so I can't almost answer that without talking about the changes in professional life. I joined Art Cheyenne as a board member in 2016 and was a board member. I think, 2023, I hit vendor shows pretty hard. I think I did, for me, 3 or 4 vendor shows that year, which on top of, full-time work is challenging because it's not just the participating in the show. You've got to make the things to sell at the show. So there's a lot that goes into those. I did a few other, I was teaching classes, like super simple things, just at the breweries or different places like that. But you had teaching into it. I did a few murals. I had other things that were coming along. And so 2023 was actually a pretty lucrative year. But by the time I got to the end of it, I really questioned, are all of these the things that I want? And so I stepped into 2024. I did a week-long retreat where I just holed up and made art and thought about things. And I decided I'm only going to commit to 2 vendor shows a year. I can't do more than that. And I couldn't have in 2024. So, but I also didn't focus on the money side last year. And I worked 2 full-time jobs for the last 2 years. So there was no capability of adding
2
more.
full-time jobs in the arts on the side?
Yep. That's what I did for 22 and 20 or 23 and 24. Yeah. Because I'm an insane person.
I hear perhaps a key in some significant success you've had, and that's in the busyness, but in 2 jobs, and I think you're like a board member at 90 to 100.
No, I've stepped back from some of those. Only a couple. Yeah.
But you have been on the boards.
Yes. I actually probably should have, for my own CV, kept better track. I stepped off a lot of different board positions in the last few years to really refocus again what I was willing and able to do. And some of those just transitioned and changed out as well. So thankfully, only a couple boards now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just hearing you're willing to give back to the community. You're volunteering quite a bit. Even the teaching, you mentioned you taught in some breweries. I'm guessing you just volunteered and just cold called, or how'd you set those up?
Yeah, so mostly they reached out. So sometimes, like with Freedom's Edge, for example, I've known Mariah Kilmer for years, and she's a great friend. And she, when they first started showing artwork and joined Art Walk, they would need artists. And so she reached out. And so 2 or 3 Octobers, I was there featured, which Halloween's my favorite month. So we'd always I would do a little bit of a curated show, and I would do a workshop that was spooky themed in some regard.
Well, you're not the only person that's in that challenge of I'm working so much, and then I've got this thing I want to do. What would you tell somebody if somebody's, say they're doing something similar, they're working a job, and they're trying to start a small little business. Maybe they're creating something. Maybe it's art. Maybe just they're hands-on. They're creating something. Really hard to get people to buy, though.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see this all the time.
I do. A lot of the conversations I have with artists, especially when they're starting out and trying to figure things out, is it's not. Yes, it's making a product or making a thing and going out there and selling it. It's formalizing yourself under all the legal things and setting up all the stuff. But before it's ever that, it's a lot of planning and internal thought, and it's sitting down to take the time. And I see a lot of people want to jump before they sit down and take the time. So if I'm talking with an artist, I talk to them about what they make, what they enjoy making, how they produce that work, how quickly they produce that work. Is that something they're willing to continue to produce over and over? We have those conversations first, because for a lot of artists and creators, it's going to be about that product first and getting to a point of really feeling good and comfortable about that. The rest can fall alongside pretty easily if you've got something that you're making that you feel good and comfortable with. And then the next step after that is I ask a little bit about support system or feedback, or who do they have to bounce things off of? Because if you don't have, it's not to say it doesn't work ever, but it's a lot easier if you've got a support around you that will help you navigate some of the difficult things that it is about being an artist and creating and putting your work out there.
If you were to encourage somebody or help them you can see they have skill, they love what they do, they have it pretty clear what they love to do, they're having a hard time making that leap.
Whenever I've encountered this, I usually talk with artists about what they're willing to do. Are they willing to put a body of works together and just approach the local coffee shop? That's a safe place to start. Because if you're at that juncture and you are struggling or feeling uncomfortable about putting yourself out there, a coffee shop is going to be enough of an out there to get you going. And that can be kind of that tip off the iceberg. For artists on the other side who have been showing a little bit and are trying to get into it and don't know exactly a lot about their audience or what might sell, they're hard, but I always encourage at least 1 or 2 vendor shows. If they're physically able to do that or have friends who can help, that is the quickest, best way to understand in our communities how somebody's going to engage and interact with your work. Gives you the feeling of putting your work on display and having other people view it. Helps you understand how you're presenting your work to the public. It goes through all of those things in a rapid way, and it helps you figure out real quick if this is what you want to be doing. Now, vendor environments are different than selling online or other places, but building up an online business is almost as hard, if not more so. because you really have to push yourself out there to be discovered that way too.
Yeah.
So,
Those are real solid.
Thanks.
Real solid things.
Thanks. Try. Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that with Desiree Brothe. I, of course, really enjoyed that interview and was excited that our video, we got some decent video on that. I think she had a really good room. I love the colors in the room. And of course, like I said, some of the lessons that she talked about. And so make sure to get in touch with Desiree if you want to reach out to her. We will either have her contact information or you can reach out to us and we'll make sure to connect you with Desiree Brothe.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, you definitely should. I had a lot of good thoughts on, and taking your art and taking it real, making it real, and kind of what to sell, how do you keep it professional? Like, what's the difference, the line between the stuff you just want to do and the stuff that actually sells. I thought that was interesting. Yeah. So it's a good episode. If then you have not then liked or subscribed to the podcast, you should do that because it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun people coming on. I'm pretty excited about it. We already have, but we also got a lot.
Quite the list for season 2.
Quite a list, yes. I think a lot of you will enjoy them as well. And so definitely should do that, and happy sailing.